will be opening this evening session with an opening service. Dexter will be our MC this evening. Dexter?
Thank you, Carolyn. Our summer session tradition is to begin with a short worship service that includes the Adhanati Sarana, sutra chanting of Jusege in English, a welcome message, and the Nembutsu. Our officiant is Bishop and Interim BSC Director, Reverend Toshiyuki Umitani.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to him, the exalted one, the enlightened one, the supremely awakened one. Saranam gacchami, Dhamman saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Dhamma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Namandops, 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 namandops. Namandops. Jusege, the verse is reaffirming the vows. I have made unrivaled vows and will reach the highest path. If I failed in any way, may I not attain Buddhahood. Should I not provide to all for countless past to come, aiding times of suffering, may I not attain Buddhahood. I will reach enlightenment, but unless my Buddha name resounds throughout the universe, may I not attain Buddhahood. I will practice the noble path, wisely, mindfully, free of greed, seek to reach the supreme way, be a fine gray night, to illumine and dispel the darkness of the three poisons, and save all from suffering. With eyes of wisdom I put the darkness of ignorance. I will cross all evil paths, open gates of highest good. When I attain the hood, light will shine throughout all lands, light brighter than sun and moon, outshining no heavenly light, giving my virtues to all, no forsaking anyone. I will proclaim the Dhamma like the law of a great lion, bowing before all Buddhas, firstly gaining virtues, with wisdom fulfilling my vows. I shall be a guide to all, like the wisdom of my teacher. May my wisdom also shine all throughout the universe, and illumine one and all. If I shall fulfill these vows, may all lands tremble with joy. From the heavens wondrous flowers rain down upon all the land. The virtue of Amida's vow is shared equally by all, together attaining awakened mind. We are born in the land of peace. Snamanda, 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 snamanda. No. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the 50th Annual Buddhist Study Center Summer Session. My name is Toshiyuki Umitani. I'm the Bishop of the Honpa Honganji Mission of Hawaii and currently serving as the acting director of this Buddhist Study Center. So on behalf of the Honganji ministers and Sangha friends, I'd like to welcome everybody for attending this summer session this evening. This is the 50th summer session. As you see this, when you see this brochure, it says this summer session started in 1974, 50 years ago. And thanks to many people's participation and dedication, contribution, now we are enjoying this, we are enjoying this summer session. And this afternoon, I'm not sure if you have received email from Honganji about this summer session. And when you see that email, there's a picture of this, the first summer session, which was held in 1974. And there was the guest lecturer was Dr. Alfred Broom, our well-known scholar. And at first I couldn't find Dr. Broom. He looks very young, and not. So we began with Dr. Broom, and then a lot of lecturers visited this Buddhist Study Center and shared their knowledge and insights with us. And so this time to celebrate this 50th anniversary, we are very grateful to have Reverend Dr. Kenji Akahoshi with us this week. Well, Dexter will introduce Akahoshi Sensei after this, but his topic, the theme of his lecture is shifting from please to thank you, a path to awakening, a contemporary interpretation of Shin Buddhism. So, well, I just want to say, well, since the title is Please to Thank You, I'd like to say, well, please enjoy this summer session. Please ask any questions if you have. Please, well, feel free to take refreshments. And please feel free to go to restroom if you have to. And also, thank you. Thank you to Akahoshi Sensei. Arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you very much for coming to Hawaii from all the way from California for us. And thank you to all the individuals who prepared for this seminar. Dexter, Carolyn Uchiyama, Derek Inoue, Dave Atchison, Reverend Baba, Yoshiko Umitani. Thank you, everyone, for making this summer session possible. Also, thank you to all of you for attending this summer session. And I sincerely hope that this summer session will be very meaningful for all of you, and then help you to live more meaningful and fulfilling and enjoyable life. So once again, thank you for attending this summer session.
And now the bishop will lead us in the Nembutsu. It can be found on page 135 of your red service book if you're not familiar with the Gatha. Thank you, Bishop Umitani. Now we're going to take a few minutes to close the altar and prepare for the presentations. Welcome back to our summer session. I'm Dexter Marr. I'll be your MC tonight. Reverend Kenji Akahoshi is our speaker. He's a retired head minister of the Buddhist Temple of San Diego since 2021. And he now leads the ministerial support pillar for the Dharma Forward campaign of the BCA. And he also gives classes for ministers' assistants of the BCA, Buddhist Churches of America. He has had recent articles in Tricycle Buddhist Magazine and Lion's Roar. He also is writing a book which interprets Shin Buddhism in a way that is relevant to 21st century America. A dentist by profession, Reverend Dr. Akahoshi earned a degree from the University of California at San Francisco Dental School before finishing his master's from the Institute of Transpersonal or Spiritual Psychology. And then he also received a master's from the Institute of Buddhist Studies in Berkeley for the ministerial path. Tonight's topic is why and how of gratitude, practicing the non-practice of gratitude. Reverend Akahoshi.
Yeah, thank you, Dexter. Oh, thank you very much. This smells very good. So, it's a pleasure for me to be here, and thank you for the invitation to be your speaker. Hopefully, it'll be an interesting talk. And what I invite you to do is that my intention is that together we'll kind of clarify Shinran's teaching, and by that I mean I'll be introducing some thoughts of mine and some things that have been successful in my career, and that whether these things resonate with you and what your thoughts are about that. And so I really invite a discussion here when I stop talking, and especially with ministers, because I'll be talking about some things that seem different from what we've been doing. And again, I would like a kind of a informal group discussion on your thoughts about this. And we start off with this thing about practice, because again, this is one of the things that Shin Buddhism talks about. And I have a little different definition of practice, and it has to do with the intent. But what we're looking at is a contemporary interpretation of Shin Buddhism. We know that the Buddha lived 2,600 years ago. Shinran lived approximately 800 years ago, and even Renyo was 500 years ago. And so the writings we have come from that period, and we're interpreting those writings. And the difficulty is that they are in a different culture and a different time period. As you recall, this was when people thought the earth was flat. Not many people think that anymore. And so I think it's time for a re-evaluation of the things we say, looking at things from a contemporary viewpoint, not only from natural science, but also from psychology and some other sciences, because we've progressed so much in the last century. So in the course of these 5 days, I'll be presenting kind of a process. And this is something we lack in America because Shin Buddhism is so new. In Japan, of course, I think Buddhism has influenced the culture over centuries. And so the culture has incorporated a lot of Buddhist and Shin principles into its culture and language. And so this is very natural. And so when people speak of things, this is something that people are aware of. Whereas in America, we come from a different culture, a different, basically a Christian-based religious standpoint. And we interpret things from that viewpoint. And unfortunately, it doesn't translate over well. And so some things are very confusing. So that's one of the things that whether we can have a path, a process where we begin to actually actively incorporate Shin Buddhist thoughts into our lives so that it influences not only our conventional daily life, but actually leads us toward that spiritual realm. Today, I think the three areas we'll talk about is the uniqueness of Shin practice, which is a little different than some other Buddhist sects that we have. And then how and why gratitude is such a central part in Shin Buddhism. And then that brings us to this point about practice, because again, we'll ask you, what your thoughts are on that. So my first question to all of you is, how do you feel about reframing the traditional terms of Shin Buddhism? What are your thoughts about whether we're up to doing something like that? I've talked about using more familiar words. Now, what I've been doing is actually not giving an alternative version, but I think this is an entry level. This is something that we haven't had. Reverend former Bishop Yamaoka wrote his 6 aspects. And in one of his books, he talks about that the West, we in America, need an educational a process because we come from a different environment. And so this is in that spirit that we make these presentations. That it's an entry level to where anyone can get this. Now, as an example, I'm Sansei, my wife is Sansei. It's 3rd generation. My sons are Yonsei, 4th generation. That means Japanese Americans. But although they look like me, they're American. And my grandsons, 5th generation, we can call them Japanese Italian Americans, because my daughter-in-law is Italian. So when I talk like that, and I think we're all familiar with this in our own families, the Nikkei community is no longer Nikkei. Nikkei, I think, is the word that we use to kind of define Japanese American. It's no longer a Japanese community. If we look around, I looked around at Obon, the Nikkei community is American. And so whether our kids or grandchildren have some Japanese ethnic, blood in them, culturally, they're Americans. And so when I talk about attracting people, these are some of these people I hope to attract. They have a little background. Many of them went to Dharma school, junior YBA, they attended church. And our question is, why are they not here? And rather than put out a lot of surveys or interesting ways of finding out what people want, all we have to do is ask our adult children or grandchildren, why don't they attend? And what we have facing us, I think, is a situation where we've gotten used to certain things and it's worked. But then I think what we have is Shin Buddhism that really is effective. Here, Shinran took something that was meant for monks and nuns and was very serious, and he made it available for common, ordinary people. And here we are in America, and these principles still work for us. And yet, because it's in a different language, in a different context, we find it difficult. So I'm looking at a relevant version of how we give this message out. It's not the Shin Buddhism itself, it's the methods of how we communicate this. I have a dry throat, so I'll be taking little sips occasionally. Now, I think the Dharma always should have the basic tenets of Shin Buddhism. And it's been my experience that it's the method that must be changed. And it has to appeal to, as we said, Americans, kind of a different environment from where it grew up in Japan. And I think gratitude is one of these things. And I call that the opening gate. because essentially the Nembutsu is our primary practice. But how do we continue that? Now, we talk about how to attract people. And one thing we're trying to emphasize in BCA are the benefits. And we don't have to know all the doctrine, things like that. But when people ask us, what do you have to offer at the Shin Buddhist temple? We should just relate and share the benefits that we get. And if it's good food, it's good food. If it's good fellowship, that's it. Interesting activities, whatever it is. But this is what people are actually interested in, essentially. Just, is this a place that I like to hang out, and perhaps get some deeper wisdom on how to live life. But anyway, one of the methods would be to share the benefits. And the thing we'll get to tonight is, as I said, one of the unique features of Shin Buddhism, and I think this is accurate, and I would like feedback from others, that the reason we're different is that we really emphasize receiving. Receiving instead of achieving. And this is, again, where I make a difference of this practice. Our practice is not to achieve anything. And I think this is where it's been a little confusing with things like meditation. And one of the problems could be the way it's been translated. And I don't speak Japanese. I quit Japanese school when I was young after 1 month. So the only Japanese I know is Kumamoto way. My father's Japanese. But anyway, as far as receiving the practice, I think what we have to realize is the word in Japanese for meditation is zazen. Now, I think the translation is to sit in meditation to achieve satori. Is that right, ministers? It's kind of, so it is a process to achieve something. And, a lot of Americans are sitting in, meditation 1 hour a week trying to achieve Buddhahood. But anyway, so that's, in a sense, trying to achieve something. If anyone's had a heart condition, I had one, or, stroke or something, often the physician will send you to John Kabat-Zinn stress reduction meditation clinic, 10-week session for many of these practitioners who are not physicians or ministers of any kind. But he's developed stress reduction mindful meditation. And so that's meditation, but that's not, in a sense, trying to achieve anything. It's trying to get a sense of your body and learn how to relax. So we'll be using meditation tonight, again, not in the sense of achieving anything, but how we might be receiving things. So that's another thing. And then what I'd like to do, and this will take some time, to clarify what is the objective of Shin? Why are you here? What do you think you can gain here? What have you gained here? So what is the objective? When people come, yes, we could tell them the benefits, but are people wanting to become a Buddha, wanting to go to the Pure Land? We're just trying to figure out, how do I deal with my mother-in-law? So what is the objective? What are the benefits that we get being here? And again, this is where I'd like some input from everyone because, I throw out a lot of ideas. Some of these stick, some don't. I move on. As I was saying, I'm always editing what I'm going to say because I'm changing it at the last minute. Whether the later versions are an improvement or not, I don't know, or whether what I say is an improvement. But anyway, that's what I'm asking. And so the questions hopefully we'll get to today and in the following days are, how can we incorporate Shin values into everyday practice so that, like Jodo Shinshu in Japan, it's a natural flow of life? I think if you were to ask many people in Japan, what they do as a Shin Buddhist, it would be hard for them to respond. And it was the same for my parents and their generation, and that's what I kind of look at. that Nisei generation who really, built the temples, went through the war in the mainland. Every Japanese, every Jodo Shinshu Buddhist, their life was cut off in 1942. And yet they responded back, coming back in 45 or 47. And their children, which is me, I'm a young child of that period. So I look at that as evidence of Jodo Shinshu, Shin Buddhism. And it was incorporated where I know my parents and their friends could not give you what we were learning in Dharma school. And yet, I could tell you what the Eightfold Path is, or, all these things, Nishu Jinshin and so forth. But it's that level where it is within our life. And how do we incorporate these natural things so that it can help us on a day-to-day basis? So I'll talk some more about my background. I think the reason I'm able to do this vision from kind of a outside point of view is that I grew up in San Jose in the Bay Area in the 1960s, went to college in Berkeley and San Jose State, Berkeley, and then dental school in San Francisco. And I was telling some people, I didn't know history was going on outside at Golden Gate Park. I knew what was going on at the Haight-Ashbury. I was there before it became famous. But anyway, I was trying to get out of dental school, so I had to stay in and study and do my lab work instead of playing out in Golden Gate Park when the flower children were making history and news cameras were out there. But when I came back from the service in 1971, actually 72, I was able to take advantage of the many gurus who were coming into the Bay Area. And that was the time when we had all these psychologists, philosophers, gurus. And the interesting thing was, and I was attending a lot of these different things. I was always in the Japanese Buddhist community, but I don't know, I had a curiosity where I was doing these other things. And they all seemed to have an activity connected with what they were talking about. There was something physical to do. I was into Chinese medicine and Native American things and so forth. But I was able to connect with some very significant people, Houston Smith, John Kabat-Zinn, Richard Baker, who was the Roshi, and philosophers, Ken Wilber, I never met him, but I've read his books. Bill Plotkin, who's a depth psychologist, Ann Gila and her husband, John Foreman, who are basically the American authors of something called psychosynthesis, which is a branch of psychology that really anchors transpersonal or spiritual psychology. And so I had this, other education. I've been at Esalen, Tassajara, some of these places that you may have heard of. But I was always going to the temple. And I was wondering why, when I would go to these other places, what they were saying always seemed to be Buddhist. People would say, oh, that's amazing. I'm thinking, I learned that in Dharma school. Since I talked about that last month. But these gurus were, talking about these things. And yet, Shin Buddhism never, broke out of that. I wonder about Shinryu Suzuki, this little Japanese Zen master, came from Japan. Bishop Ogui was kind of a student of his in San Francisco for a while. But this one man, they acquired Tassajara, this beautiful, that's where their monastery is in the, anyway, it's in the mountains in Monterey, Green Gulch, which is in a beautiful property in Marin County, city center, which is in San Francisco. But they have all these places in the following and of people. When I went to their service one Sunday, it looked like a nice Presbyterian gathering. They were all Buddhists listening to, at that time, I think it was Reb Anderson, who was the Roshi. But again, I was able to bring this information in. But I had the basis of Jodo Shinshu. And I'm old, so I could talk about people. I was able to, listen to Reverend Suji, Ogui, both Taitetsu and Tetsuno, and El Bloom. Anyway, I had this background of really meeting many ministers. San Jose is a best wing, and so many young ministers came through. And my mom would invite these young bachelors over. And then, of course, later they got married and they bring their families. But, Reverend Yukawa, Nishimura, Hojo, Tokunaga. I got to mention Reverend Kusada. But anyway, there's something about Shin Buddhism that is anchoring. Whereas, there were a lot of gurus talking about things, but I was just wondering, how can we incorporate some of these ideas? And it's more the methods of spreading the information. So with that, want to begin with, questions. First of all, it all began with Siddhartha Gautama. And he led a pretty princely life, like some of our, we used to say yuppies. I guess that's an old term now. But I think many of the young people in the upper middle class have far better lives than Siddhartha. They could have food from any place in the world, delivered to them. They ride in fancy cars. But he lived that great life that his father protected him. But he learned about sickness, old age, and death. I've got 2 out of 3 of those, so I'm interested. And so what he had to do is he left ordinary life and he went to seek. And what he discovered, he said he was enlightened and he became a Buddha. And when a passerby asked him, as he was sitting there after his enlightenment with this aura behind him, "Sir, are you a god?" And he said, "No, I'm awake." And so I want to make this distinction that many Buddhists say, as a Buddhist, our goal is to become a Buddha. That is not my goal. And we have as our founder Shinran, who perhaps had that goal. And for 20 years he tried. And he had the integrity, the honesty to say, I can't do it. I fail. I can't keep not only the precepts, but his heart. He says his passion was still there. And so he was able to look at and find his teacher Honen, who had followed this other line of thinking from the Buddha. But then looking at the larger sutra and contemplation in Amida Sutra, he found a different way. He shifted somewhat from Honen's teaching, and this is what we're trying to share with others. And so his unique approach, I feel, is simply said by receiving instead of achieving. So that's the first thing. What do people think about that? Does that fit into what Shinran is saying? We hear a lot of things, but in simple English. And I boil things down to a couple of words. Receiving instead of achieving, from please to thank you. We're talking to Americans here, us Americans. We can only hold 2 or 3 words at one time. So what is this thought of achieving? Receiving instead of achieving. What are some thoughts? Does that fit into a Shin background or a Shin tenet? This is a discussion. Yes.
For me, listening to you, I feel that I'm receiving. I feel by being here and listening to you, I am receiving knowledge, information. And with that, I feel I want to achieve being a better person. Your question about what is the goal of a Buddhist. I never thought of that, but I think I'm looking forward to hear more about achieving and receiving. If I can achieve more understanding, especially of other people, and hopefully I can live a better life.
Thank you. Yeah, why don't you state your name and you're a dentist, right?
Dennis Toshiro
Dennis,
from Windward
yeah.
Buddhist Temple.
Hi, Jen Connie,
Jen.
also Windward Buddhist Temple. I'm not sure. I'm hoping to learn what you're talking about, but I like the way it sounds because when I think of achieving, I also think of how we are also driven and it's kind of anxiety producing. And even if I'm trying to achieve enlightenment or I'm falling short because I don't understand or I'm still having a bombu, which I'm never gonna get rid of, but I still have a little bit of that anxiety trying to achieve something. So if I can shift to receiving, like you're talking about, that sounds promising and maybe a little more a calmer approach to life in general. So I'm very interested.
Thank you. Others want to comment on that? One of the points I'd like to make here is that there's no self-effort. And I think this is what Shinran was talking about, that we don't have the capacity, and he was talking more in spiritual terms, of maintaining or controlling our ego. Now, the other thing is you're sitting there listening to me. Do you hear what I'm saying? Hearing is receiving. Now, there's a difference between hearing and listening, but we can go over that. But we sometimes hear that hearing is our practice. And so we listen to Dharma talks and we receive this. So to me, that is one of the basic things, and we'll do a little exercise to see whether that, is true. Now, what is our main practice in Shin Buddhism? We do have a practice. What Nembutsu, isn't that right? So why don't we all practice that just right now, okay? So let's put our hands together and we could stay seated. Now, Nembutsu is saying the Buddha's name, and there are different ways of saying that, but the one most familiar to us is Namo Amida Butsu. So we'll just say it once. Please join me. Gassho, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you. Okay. Now, would anyone like to share how they felt saying that? Yeah, just, I know it takes some thought because we often don't think about that.
I don't know, every time I say that, I don't know, I feel like I go inside.
Mhm.
I can't explain it. I just feel like I go inside my body. I don't know how to explain it.
Okay, that's a good description. Anyone else? We said,
I feel full.
okay, yeah, thank you. You feel full. Other thoughts on saying Nembutsu, Dennis?
I don't know, I felt good, like I'm one with everybody, that we're all together.
Now, for new people, how do you think they feel? They come in and we say this several times during our service, Namo Amida Butsu. And sometimes I don't pronounce it the way it's written, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. How do you think it sounds to them? What if we said, just say abracadabra? If I asked you, say abracadabra, what would you feel? Okay, we're not quite sure what that means. And to a new person, Namo Amida Butsu, abracadabra, yeah. And the point I'm trying to make here is that just saying something, the words, has to have an experience behind it. And this is when I usually say that I'll, read definitely what Shinran said in Tani Sho, chapter 10, shortest chapter in the book. It's indescribable, inexplicable, and incomprehensible. So this was, and I always like to say, now I'll explain this concept to you and describe it so you understand it. In other words, even Shinran is saying, it's beyond words. And so I want to turn to Shinran And if we could put on slide number 2. This is what he says, and it's not directly about Nembutsu, but this is what he starts to tell us in Kyogo Shinshu. This is the chapter 2 on practice. He says this, and it's written in number 2, Shinran Shoshinge. Back about 4 or 5 slides. Back more. Let's see, number 2. Huh? Yeah, 2. Oh, good grief. Well, there are my technical skills. Let me just read it then. That's okay, I'll just read it. In chapter 2 on practice, Shinran says, still the clouds and mists of greed and desire, hate and anger cover as always the sky of true and real Shinjin. But though the light of the sun is veiled by clouds and mist, beneath the clouds and mist, there is brightness, not dark. So in Shin Buddhism, what he's saying is that we realize we have our ego, we have these desires, and this is what he was pointing out. But he's also looking at this reality that beneath the clouds of our ego, the darkness, beneath the clouds, there's light. He's saying something else. And so he's saying, in a sense, we don't have to get rid of these ego desires. Sure, we do our best, but that's not required. We don't have to achieve that because the light of the sun, Amida's light, is still bathing us. And then he says, he goes on to, I don't know, I guess we don't have the next slide. I messed up in putting that PowerPoint together. He says, when one realizes Shinjin, seeing and revering and attaining great joy, one immediately leaves crosswise, closing off the 5 evil courses. Now, let's do a demonstration here. What does he mean by leaving crosswise, going sideways? Put up your hand and hide my face with the palm of your hand like this, okay? Yeah, now you can't see my face. Now, what if I were to leap crosswise? Here we go. Can you see? Okay, you can put your hand down. Now, what happened when I left crosswise? You could see me. What happened? There was a change of perspective. So I'm taking some latitude in interpreting this, but a crosswise leap could mean change your perspective. Yeah, I'm focused, oh, look at this cloudy day. Oh, but look, if I change my perspective, there's still sunlight. And so he's saying that, yeah, we are receiving the light, even though we try to hide it with all these things. And we don't have to have this achievement of, controlling our ego. And so I've tried to translate this thought of being a Buddhist is becoming, our goal is becoming a Buddhist. I think I wrote this in the handout. Reframing the traditional terms, I have a contemporary way would be awakening process, aligning the mind with truth. Now, I'll kind of define that in a little bit, but we'll see if that makes sense. That as ordinary people, what we're about as Buddhists is awakening, a process of awakening that aligns our mind with truth. And I think that's what Siddhartha did. When he aligned his mind with truth, he realized it would liberate him. And so we'll do an exercise now. And but before that, I want to give you an example of my own life. Yes, I was a dentist and I was very proud. And I know Bert is here, but I went to the best school, UCSF in California. But I was very proud that I made it, and the first couple of years, I was afraid of getting kicked out. And the second 2 years, I was afraid I wouldn't get out. But anyway, that's how it was in dental school. But I thought, boy, I'm pretty good. Got out of school and, DDS and all that, and very proud. But it was later, as an adult, I looked back and realized that, and I didn't think about it too much at the time, but my mother had worked part-time at Nichibei Busan, the Japanese store, just part-time in Japantown in San Jose. And she took on a job at a children's store full-time. Didn't think too much about it. And then I remember my father working 7 days a week when we got back from Denver after camp. And again, I was young, so I probably didn't think too much about it. And I felt we had very great instructors, and the school, we bragged that it was the best. How did that school get there? Someone had to start that school, and that dental school in a university. Who started that university? And things had to happen. We had instructors there, and they were giving up, a day or a couple of days a week to teach, and not making the financial rewards they would if they were in their office. So there's a whole slew of things. Also, financially, banks were able to give loans. My parents helped me, basically all of it. And, all these things I had not considered. So I want to ask for each of you, how did you get to the position that you really felt proud about? And it could be your career, or it could be socially, or, even as a mother or father, And so we're going to do this exercise, but think about what might be your proudest achievement in life. Okay? And so if you can, you have the handout, and I think on, the bottom of the first page there, meditation exercise, just be ready to write, and this will take about 10 minutes. Now, for those of you who haven't meditated, we're going to go through a meditation process. Don't worry about whether you're doing it right. We just want to kind of be relaxed, but I'll give you some instructions. So first of all, you might get away from the back of your chair and try to sit upright. And you're trying to be comfortable, and you put your feet flat on the floor and your head straight up. Think about a string holding the top of your head, held by a helium balloon that goes up to the sky, and your face is looking straight ahead. And those of you at home, you might try this again, try this also at home. And then with your hands, you could put it on your lap, either palms down or palms up, whatever is comfortable. And those of you who may do meditation and Zen, if you want to put your hands in that holding the egg position, you might do that. Now, very slowly, just take in the breath in through your nose and just exhale through your mouth. And then slowly allow your eyes to almost close, but don't close it completely. Just leave a little slit open so that if your head is upright and your eyes are almost closed, you just see a little slit of the outside, either the table or the floor in front of you. And what this does is it keeps you connected with the outside. Your eyes are not completely shut. And then just continue to breathe naturally, in through your nose, out through your mouth. And then start to relax from the top of your head and your face. You just kind of scrunch it and then relax. And then with your neck and shoulders, you might just tighten it and then relax. And then with your hands and arms, kind of squeeze it and then relax. And then tighten your shoulders and your back and then relax. And then let your buttocks and thighs kind of tighten and relax. And lastly, your leg, lower leg, and feet, you might tighten it and relax. And again, just breathe naturally. And try to feel as comfortable as you can, although this may feel a little strange to you. And then as you inhale, just start to count in 1, exhale 1. Inhale 2, exhale 2. And now just be quiet for a little bit and count. And if you reach 10, just start over. If you lose count, start at 1. And all we're doing is trying to relax ourselves so that we can think and look inward. Now, I'm going to hit the bell, and then just give you a couple of minutes and recall how you gained that position we talked about. You know, the best thing you felt you did in your career or your social life or your family life. And think about all of those people who gave you direct support. Then I'll give a little hint as we're doing this. So I'll hit the chimes and be silent for a couple of minutes and think of all those people that may have helped you directly. Okay? So I'll be silent. Now, along with those who helped you directly, think of those who helped you indirectly. Maybe your second grade teacher, the institutions that you attended, anything indirectly that helped you reach that position. And just continue to think about those things. Now, very slowly, allow your attention to come back, and you can slowly open your eyes, but still in this meditative state. Write down the names of those who helped you directly. And then, if you can, continue to write those who may have helped you indirectly on that meditation exercise at the bottom, number 1. And we'll just do that for a minute or so. Okay, now that second question. You probably don't have enough room to write everything you needed to, but what did this first part, what realization did that evoke for you? So on number 2 there, what did you realize doing this exercise? I'll just give you a minute to do that. Okay, let's stop there and you could finish at home. To fill in if you want that first part, number one, and then especially the second part, number two. What did that evoke for you? So can we share what some people got, especially from the second part? What did this little exercise bring up for you?
The first thing I thought of was something I felt maybe the word is financially, like it was a success, if you will. But as I thought further, I thought of something that happened. I thought, and I remember to this day how my parents were already passed away, but my siblings were very proud when two other friends and I formed a business, and they conveyed how mom and dad would have been very proud of you. And so that made me think about all the people that truly was there for me, my parents, but also people along the way that got me the knowledge that I needed to start the business.
Yeah.
So for that, I'm really truly grateful.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. Anyone else? What brought that up?
Okay, my gratitude was becoming a minister. It had nothing to do financially. It had a personal goal that was supported by many, many people, philosophically, spiritually, and giving me wholehearted support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, one thing of course, yeah, along the way, many teachers, relatives, aunties, co-workers, mentors. But I thought about I had an auntie who worked on a plantation. Her husband died, so he was a very close cousin to my mom. But her husband died when he was about 42 on the plantation. So you can think that there was no social support for her. She had 3 children. She went to work on the plantation, Ohana, in order to raise her 3 children. So I thought about the kind of example that she set for her own family and even for me. Plus many, many others along the way.
Anyone else like to share? Oh, way in the back.
Well, I came to the realization that each and every person and experience that I was recalling supported me and shaped me, including those that seemed negative at the time. So I really appreciate actually everyone's generosity. And sometimes through the years, I have so many memories of sacrifices my parents made and so forth. But there were times when I may have been rebellious or didn't really take the advice as seriously, but they did have influence upon me and to a positive way, actually.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else like to share? Jane?
I realized that too, the negative part that just popped into my head when I was thinking, but there was just more to what I thought took place was taking place. There was more involved behind the scenes that I didn't really think about, including the negative things that were really hard, or people that I thought, gee whiz, they just go away or something. But yeah, even all that stuff helps to drive you, move you, get you through it. So That was basically it, that there was just the path that I was on wasn't the path that I alone was creating and walking. And that's really what I got. Yeah.
Thank you. So, yeah, the point of this exercise is really to experience something, and it's whether our lives really, is it about our individual achievements, or was there a little help from others, or a lot of help from others? And a lot of help is, you know, who invented the car, and all these things, you know, and we'll talk about that in the next segment, but yeah, it's just looking at the light below the clouds, and it's a shift. And what brings about this shift, I think, is this Nembutsu, which we'll talk about. So we're about time for the break. So are there questions on what we've talked about up to now? And from, I guess, online?
Especially for the Zoom audience, I don't know if there's anything in the chat. So Zoomers, remember to put your thoughts into the chat. Hopefully you're doing the exercises too. Any questions on this first section before we go on to a small break and then the next presentation?
Just before the exercise, I wrote down a comment that you said, change of perspective. And I'm wondering, was this exercise part of that? Because it did change my perspective. As I mentioned, I thought of, at retirement, my wife and I thought things were going to be really tough. But as things fell in place, we felt very comfortable that we're going to be okay. I thought that as being my first thing that I was going to talk about. But then I thought further, that's, you know, I changed my perspective. So I
Yes. Yeah.
Are there questions or comments?
Online questions.
When I was doing this exercise, I thought, oh, this paper is too small. I can't write everything.
I could give you 4 blank
Yeah,
pages.
I know. So I thought countless, and then I thought about Amida. Amida is all.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
Dave.
I'm going to come out from behind the camera to ask this. So I really enjoyed that exercise. One of the things that has occurred to me before, ironically in a dentist chair, was the words of Shinran. I can't remember exactly, but it was something about all this is done for me, Shinran alone, right? And it kind of puzzled me. It always sort of puzzled me. But in the dentist chair, I was thinking, I have 2 different dentists. I have a gum dentist, I have my regular dentist. And I just was struck, even though it was kind of a little bit painful, all this was done, it was as if it were done just for me. Because of the quality of the care I was getting was just incredible. And so it couldn't have been any better had it been tailored specifically for me. But because the dentists are trying to serve everybody, they're able to make these big investments in what the training they need, the equipment they need. And I just felt like, I wonder if that's what Shinran was talking about a little bit. Maybe could you comment on that, please?
Yes. Again, at my age, we go see different physicians routinely. Not only physicians, there's subspecialists and the subspecialists. Because I think Bert can agree. I was talking with a friend. We went to dental school in the dark ages. The way they're doing things now, it's all electronic. I don't know if I can handle all that. But I think about some of the treatment I had, that if I had this diagnosis 20 years ago, I would not be here talking. But again, they've invented these impossible things that they're doing surgically, microscopic things. And so, yes, those are the people that we don't even think about. The whole COVID thing, we have these vaccines and so on and so forth. That's going on. Of course, they're paid, these are jobs. And yet, where would we be had, if researchers, scientists, whatever, construction people, not build these roads and buildings and so forth. And so we're living in this pure realm of, conveniences. But, oh, look, I have to pay the rent. I got to do this. Gas prices are up. Let's focus on the clouds, or let's look at the light beneath the clouds. And I think that's Shinran is saying that in his, Shoshinge that we chant often. So shall we take a break?
Yeah, let's take an 7-minute break till 7:30. We're a little bit behind schedule for the evening, so still try to get us out close to on time. Okay, so we'll reconvene at 7:30. Please help yourself to food. Restrooms are that away. We will resume our part 2 of the presentation and then move into a short Q&A before we wrap up for this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll come back. And that exercise, again, was actually experiencing something. So I want each of us to realize whether that is what Shinran's talking about. That we all think we're achieving something, but there's so much more that we receive. And I'll quickly go over some things because I want to get to this next exercise, which you'll do tomorrow before the class. But what we have here is, again, rather than becoming a Buddha, I have written down what I think is a contemporary version of an awakening process, not enlightening, but just to wake up, where we align our mind with truth. And what I have here is that awakening process kind of means a practice and aligning the mind. Now, when we hear mind, I just want to reiterate that in the West, when we say mind, it's just the cognitive, the brain. But then when we hear or see written the Buddhist mind, it involves the mind, the body, emotions or feelings, and spirit. It's the whole being. And so be aware of that it's not just the mind, it's not a mental thing. We just don't sit in meditation with the mind. In fact, sitting in meditation is one of the most physical things you could do. But so that's the point. And then we'll talk about truth, and we'll get to that tomorrow. But the thing I want to do here is very quickly the importance of practice in that, let's see, where, yeah, our slides got messed up, so let's see. Anyway, what we were doing with that introspection was sort of a Nikon therapy. I don't do Nikon therapy because I think you need a therapist for that, but the initial part, what have others done for me? And then you might even think of, what you've done for others. We won't get into what problems I cause for others because that's where you need a clinician and work in depth. All the people you messed up along the way. Now, one thing with words, and this is where practice seems so important, that if I were to say, what Buddhism is about is the middle path. Do you know what that means? I like to use the word balance, right? And if you can't, let's see, where I guess the screen where you can see the balance. And if you're not reading English, we have this. Okay, balance. Okay. Now, do you all understand what I'm talking about? So as we talk, and I mentioned Dharma talks are fine, but we understand that. Is that enough? No. Does that include our body, mind, and everything? Now, for those of you who are able to stand up, if you can, if you have trouble, don't do that. Just watch everyone else. Now, for those of you who can, lift up one leg. Now, what is balance? You could sit down. Do you have a deeper understanding of balance? Balance is understood up here. Standing up and standing on one leg, that's middle path. That's balance. But we know about it from a completely different viewpoint. Our body is involved. So this is where practice is important. And what actually Joseph Campbell says, and I can't find it here, where are you, Campbell? What he says is that it's not a meaning of life that we're looking at. It's actually the experience, the joy of life. Oh, I'm so organized here. I can't find my quotes here. Okay. He says, it's not the meaning of life, it's being the experience of being alive. Feel the rapture of being alive. So it goes from a concept to experience. So that's what I want to emphasize, that as Buddhists, there's always a practice. And yet in Shin Buddhism, because I think we're kind of misunderstanding, and this is where I want some feedback, is Shinran really saying we don't have a practice, or can we have a practice, even meditation, a practice of receiving? Otherwise, how do we realize, this is important to us? And I'm not sure, you might flip through a couple of slides there. If I don't have it, I'll just read it. Number 8, awakening and aligning the mind is an experience. Truth we'll talk about tomorrow, a little subject. Okay, the next slide. Okay, receiving much more. This is what hopefully that exercise showed us. And the next one, a little self-effort, mostly effort of others. And the next one, okay, now this is where thank you, gratitude comes in. And it's recognizing, acknowledging that we receive something. We're receiving things all the time. But when we say thank you, when do we say thank you? When you realize someone has given you something. And what does that show? That honors the person who gave you something. You feel honored, you feel humble. There's this connection. And so this thank you is important. Next slide. Yeah, and in Japan, you have this whole arigatai. The whole culture is about, this gratitude. Now, the reason I have this is I'm looking at the central practice in Shin Buddhism, and it is Nembutsu. But as I said, for a lot of people, it could be like abracadabra. But thank you is something that everyone knows. We don't have to explain it. And it's, again, entry level. But we need to practice it. Next. So it's a shift from please. We go around, and kids especially, please, please, please. I want this. I got 2 grandsons. Please, please, please. They finally learn to say please. It's twice as hard to have them say thank you, right? Give me this, give me that. Say please, please, can I have this? Now say thank you. That's hard. And here we are as adults. It's saying thank you, developing a practice to recognize and bring up to our minds that we're receiving something. Next. Okay, you can turn it off. We could leave it there. That's our next exercise. I don't have it up here, but Shinran says this, and again in Shoshinge. One is naturally brought to a stage of the definitely settled, solely saying the Tathagata, Buddha's name constantly. One should respond with gratitude to universal vow of great compassion. So this is where I get thank you. Shinran is saying, we say Nembutsu with, gratitude for this vow, and we could talk about that later in the week. But I have found that for new people, saying thank you is the most effective way of leading toward Nembutsu. As I said, we could read chapter 10, it's inconceivable, inexplicable, blah, blah, blah. So how do we make that into a actual practice? Now, we have this exercise, and hopefully you'll do this tomorrow. We have the Eightfold Path, and I have it in kind of a reverse order than you may have learned it in Dharma school. If we could turn to that, I guess it's slide 11. So in the morning, and again, we'll talk about later about going to the Obutsudan. We'll talk about that, I think, Thursday. But just for a minute or so, just think about what during the day you can acknowledge. And it might be a water faucet. So you have to be mindful to keep that in mind, water faucet, okay? And then during, that takes some effort. And during your livelihood or the daily routine of your life, when you encounter a water faucet, you turn it on, conduct. And then you say thank you, as you wash your hands and face. And that speech, right away your thought is, oh, I'm grateful that I have this running water. If anyone has been camping, you know what a pleasure it is to have running water, what it means to take a shower. And that shifts your perspective. But it's a simple thing like a water faucet. So one thing during the day, every time you encounter a water faucet, you turn it on and you say thank you, and your thought shifts. And hopefully it brings you to this perspective that it took the effort of so many others for that water to be there. Not only the plumber, the construction company, but the city, whoever has the reservoir, filtering the water treatment plant, et cetera. And who thought of that, decades ago to do that? And we have it all over. Again, we're in a very civilized area, and there are parts of the world where that doesn't happen. And we see it on the news, where people are just hoping for water, and they have to bring it in with cans, on trucks and things. So that's one thing. But what this exercise is about is bringing gratitude into every day with a practice. So every time, and do that for a week or so. Every time you, encounter a water faucet, and then you might change and or add this every time you have a light switch. Thank you, thank you. And then maybe entering the car. Thank you. Now, people have told me, because I do this often, and this is why I say gratitude, this method seems to work the best with newcomers. And they've told me the next slide, one of the most effective things is the stoplight. When you come to a stoplight, especially a yellow light, trying to beat no, slow down. I have to tell my wife is my coach. Hey, how come you lecture on yellow lights and you're trying to beat that? Anyway, you come to a red light and you stop and you say, thank you. You don't say, oh, I got to waste a minute or 2 minutes. Because who has the green light? The other people. This is interdependence. And it's there because there may have been accidents there, but it prevents that if people follow, the sign. So you stop and say thank you because it allows other people to go. And again, an everyday occurrence that it just brings to mind all the things that occur to us that we're receiving. And this is our crosswise leap. And the thing that I think we actually tell our kids about is itadakimasu before meals. And as ministers, we're always itadaking the books before chanting or reading. But before meals, itadakimasu, honoring the lives, the sacrifice of animals, vegetables, people who made that, again, a whole system of things that have gone on, things grown across the world, shipped in somehow, and so for our pleasure to eat. So itadakimasu is that thing where we're acknowledging all the interconnections that brought this meal to us. So again, that we can expand it just from meals to get into all the other things. So my homework, and I always seem to give homework, try to do this Eightfold Path thing. Select one thing tonight or tomorrow morning that you will, during the day tomorrow, you will say thank you each time you encounter it. Something very simple like a water faucet or a light switch or entering a car or something. And that'll just be tomorrow, and we'd like you to share, what your experience of that is, and then to keep that up. But we'll talk about that. Any questions on that? How you might do this activity? Yes.
What if during the day that you encounter negative things, like somebody is like swearing at you or doing something to you that, it's not thankful.
You smile and you say thank you, don't drive them crazy. No, you're ruining the exercise. No, I know. No, we can get into that. I don't have an answer right now, but I think we'll get into that.
Okay.
But this is just to help us in a neutral situation, because again, there are things that we do. There are things you just don't say thank you to. Sad someone passes away and so on and so forth. But there are ways of seeing this other side. And yeah, encountering negative action like that, I'll talk a little bit about it because Shinran talks about, some very evil people, and he calls them, bodhisattvas. So, why is that? But anyway, so thank you for your question. We don't have an answer. Your local minister will answer this. We just don't have time. Okay. So, and I'll just say this, this thank you. If you've seen the movie The Karate Kid, this is one 30 years ago, Mr. Miyagi, Pat Morita, has Daniel, he says, what do? First, you polish the car, right? Oh, and then you paint the fence up and down. And Daniel says, I want to learn karate, And then he realizes that in karate, this is very important, all the movements are circular or up and down. And that's kind of what thank you is about. What's this thing? We're leading to Nembutsu, this indescribable, inexplicable, sacred thing that we do. But anyway, that's, why I have that as a practice, because it is something we know. And then this thank you becomes as natural as putting on the car seat belt or locking your front door. It just, and what I want to know in the future is whether that changes your perspective in life, because that's, we start off wholesome views or perspective, and I have it in reverse order, but this practice hopefully will help us change our views. So,
And it looks like there's a chat
yeah,
question. Should we practice in order from meditation and move on the list?
Well, it's just a suggestion that the meditation, you just take a minute or so. What can I appreciate today? So it may not even take a minute, but, again, I'm just using that because I know there's an acronym some people have to memorize, Eightfold Path. And the only good reason for that, I think, is if you're in Dharma school and, you tell your teacher, oh, I know these, and that never made sense to me. The Buddha has his path, and I think it's useful to have an eightfold path that we might use. And we could use it, perspective, thought, speech, conduct, effort, mindfulness, and meditation. But we could also do it in reverse order. But anyway, I think that's valuable that we do that. So it's not, you're meditating for 10 minutes. Just think of something that you can do during that day. And then tomorrow, hopefully, we can share that. So I hope that may answer the question. So that's what we'll start off with tomorrow. Let me just kind of quickly review what we've talked about. It's shifting our view. And again, I started out talking about the difficulty of understanding Shun. And basically it's because of this east-west, different culture, different time frame. The earth used to be flat, and now we've got Zoom and internet. And you know, Shin teachings are true. I think they're very effective, but it's the way we may have been giving the message. And it's been difficult because we could almost say we're not speaking the language. You know, it's a foreign language. The thing I like to say is, you know, what is this? Can someone tell me what I'm saying to you if I do this? Come here, oide, right? So I'm teaching you Shin, oide. Americans are saying, oh, he's saying goodbye. So we have a lot of that, where we think we're saying come here, but in effect, to Americans, it's, you know, you're not a sinner, you know, you don't have to worry about God saving you. Come to our temple. Yeah. You're not you're an ignorant, evil person, and Amida will save you. And then we wondered, gee, they didn't come back a second time. You know? So you'll notice that I say things in kind of a positive way. And us Americans, we Americans like things positive. You're a smart idiot. Oh, thank you. So I know we're tweaking things, but we need to really have an entry level, because whatever we're doing now doesn't seem to work very effectively. And just ask our adult children why. And I have, yeah, later in the week, we'll talk about the sacred, you know, spiritual place, but this leads up to that. So I think that's it. Any other questions? And got 4 minutes to go.
Yeah, we can go to questions and answers now. And anybody on the Zoom? No? Okay. Anybody else here? You clear on your exercises?
And you could fill in that first exercise we did, you know, fill in more people, and you can do that periodically. Just think about all the people who have helped you along the way, and maybe you'll be writing some letters or emails and thanking people, and they'll appreciate that.
Okay. Last chance. Well, again, good luck on trying to see if you can make progress on changing your perspectives. You know, I love the example of, you know, balance. You know, the words or the symbols, a lot different than trying to stand on your foot. You know, put it into action. I think that's, you know, the important thing in understanding is to, you know, get into an action point. So, you know, good luck with the water faucets and light switches and stoplights. You know, and it won't be easy.
Yeah, I should interject,
because we're not used to it.
Interject something that the practice we'll do tomorrow. That's Kaizen, incremental learning, incremental. And we'll talk about that Wednesday when we talk about the self. But these things are going to take some time. You know, we have 30, 40, 50, 60 years of doing things a certain way. And it's not going to go away in a week. But we'll talk about that Wednesday, the difficulty of shifting. But it does take this incremental kind of change. It's not, you know, we want the, you know, 1 week, 10-week version, you know, buy this and in 10 weeks you'll lose 50 pounds.
There'll be a test on Friday.
Yes.
See how well you stand on one foot. Okay.
Since so far in your whatever hour and a half that we've gone through this, I get this deep sense that Jodo Shinshu is about me. It's about I. There is no we in Jodo Shinshu. You know, and so where does the idea of, say, the temple being like a dojo to practice?
Yeah.
Because I can do all the things that you've suggested today at home with my grandchildren, with my wife, right? All of those kinds of stuff. It isn't necessary for me to go to the Hondo. So how do we put this into perspective?
Okay, Wednesday we'll talk about me, which is actually we. And then Thursday we'll talk about the benefits of being at a Shin Sangha or temple. It is about we. This is our mistake. We think we're achieving. Me is achieving something. It's we have been receiving. And it's our identity. So we'll talk about that Wednesday. The topic is, I don't know, it's about the self or something like that. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, we'll get into that.
Okay, so I'd like to thank Reverend Akahoshi for his presence and his sharing the Dharma with us tonight. Bishop Umitani, Carolyn, Derek, Reverend Baba, and Dave for support, and Barbara and Roy Higa for helping with the registration. The next topic tomorrow night, Tuesday, is truth. Now and then, our understanding of truth has expanded from the Buddhist time to now. Okay, so hopefully you'll all be joining us for tomorrow. You know, if you have on Zoomland, if you have, you know, questions, you can email them. Well, just save them and
right.
then
Tomorrow morning, tomorrow at the beginning, we'll answer questions. So it'll take a while to digest, and you have the handout. So people watching on Zoom can send in their questions that way. But we'll start off with sharing about your experience during the day about practicing.
Okay.
And other questions.
Okay, so you know, so we're adjourned for the evening. If you know, some of you would like to talk with Reverend Akahoshi, you know, after we close, you know, that'll be fine. Okay, so thank you very much.
Dexter.
Oh, and let's put our hands together in Gasho. And with sincere mind and trusting hearts. Namo Amitabha.
Namo Amitabha. Namo Amitabha. Namo Amitabha. Namo Amitabha. Namo.